I came home early from surgery to find my sister and husband in our bed. After taking her in when she lost her job, this was how she repaid me. I left without a word, blocked the accounts, and changed the locks. But what happened next shocked everyone. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. My name is Carolyn. I'm 42 years old, and this is the story of how I came home from surgery to find my sister sleeping with my husband, and how I took back my life. The silence was the first thing I noticed. It wasn't just quiet, you know? It wasn't the peaceful quiet of an empty house. It was a deep, unnatural quiet that felt wrong in my bones. I'd just paid the cab driver. He was a nice man, older, with kind eyes, and he kept insisting on helping me with my small overnight bag. "You look like you're in pain, ma'am," he'd said. "I'm fine, thank you," I told him, forcing a smile. I wasn't fine. I was weak and sore, and the incision from the appendectomy a few days ago was pulling and stinging with every step. I just wanted to get inside. I watched him drive off, and I stood there for a moment on the sidewalk, just breathing. I fumbled with my keys for a second, my hand shaking just a little from the last of the anesthesia wearing off. The metal felt cold. The lobby was quiet. The elevator ride up was quiet. And when I finally got to my apartment door, 14B, I remember thinking how much I just wanted a cup of tea and my own bed. The lock clicked. It's a heavy door, solid oak. The door swung open, and the silence just hit me. It flowed out of the apartment like a physical thing. It was the heavy, breathless silence of a held breath, and it made the fine hairs on my arms prickle with a sudden, cold dread. I expected life. After being discharged from the hospital a day ahead of schedule, my doctor said I was recovering well and I'd begged to go home. I expected to walk into some semblance of normal. The low hum of the TV, maybe the sound of Gary, my husband, on a work call in his office. He was supposed to be working from home to take care of me. That was the plan. We'd discussed it. "Don't worry, honey," he'd said, "I'll hold down the fort. You just rest." My younger sister, Janice, who had been our house guest for 6 long months, was supposed to be out pounding the pavement looking for a job. Or at least, that's what she told me she was doing every day. But the apartment was utterly still. No TV. No keyboard tapping. No water running. I set my small overnight bag down by the door, my movements feeling sluggish and clumsy. The mail was piled on the little table by the entryway. A circular for a grocery store, a bill from the electric company, a magazine with a bright, smiling woman on the cover. All untouched. It looked like it hadn't been picked up in days. I walked into the kitchen. A coffee mug, half full of cold, black coffee, sat on the marble counter. A little ring of condensation had dried around its base. It looked like it had been there since yesterday. The air was stale. It smelled close. The dull throb in my side was a familiar ache, but a new, sharper pain was beginning to bloom in my chest, a tight knot of anxiety. "Gary?" I called out. My voice sounded small. No answer. "Janice?" Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator. I didn't call out their names again. Some primal instinct warned me against it. A feeling that shouting into this oppressive quiet would shatter something fragile and irreversible. I slipped off my sneakers, wincing as I bent over. I was still in the comfortable sweats I'd worn home from the hospital. I padded down the hallway in my socks. Our bedroom door, which I always kept wide open to let the light in, was closed. Not just a little. Not cracked. It was closed almost all the way. Just a thin sliver of darkness remaining. My heart didn't just drop. It stopped. It hammered once, hard, against my ribs. It was wrong. Gary knew I hated that door being closed. It made the hallway too dark, and I'd told him 100 times it felt gloomy. He was always leaving it open for me. My feet felt like lead. I moved closer. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Maybe they'd gone out for groceries. Maybe they were. I don't know. Maybe they were both in the office, on headphones, and hadn't heard me. But the office door was wide open. The room was dark, the chair empty. I was standing right in front of my bedroom door now. My hand instinctively went to my sore side, as if to protect myself. And as I drew closer, I heard it. At first, it was just a soft murmur, a sound I couldn't quite place. A voice. Low. And then, a laugh. It was a low, throaty laugh. A giggle. It was Janice's laugh. My blood ran cold. I mean it. A glacial sludge in my veins. The laugh itself, it was the one our parents always described as tinkling, like a set of delicate wind chimes. Oh, Janice has the most wonderful laugh, my mother always said. But hearing it now, from behind my bedroom door, it didn't sound tinkling. It sounded like shattering glass. It sounded dirty. My hand felt disconnected from my body as I reached out. I didn't knock. I just pushed the door open. And there they were. In my bed. In the big, cherrywood, four-poster bed that Gary and I had spent a whole weekend assembling 5 years ago. I remembered us laughing and fighting over the instructions, him getting the headboard on backward, me reading the steps out loud, us collapsing in a heap and ordering pizza. The crisp, clean, 1,000 thread-count Egyptian cotton sheets I had put on just before I went into the hospital, they were a tangled, chaotic, disgusting mess around their bodies. They didn't see me at first. They were busy. Lost in their own sordid little world. Gary's head was buried in the crook of Janice's neck. Her fingers, with her bright red, chipped nail polish, were tangled in his hair. The betrayal was so absolute, so visually obscene, that it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I couldn't breathe. I just stood there, my hand still on the doorknob. It wasn't just my husband of 10 years. My partner. The man I'd built a life with. It was my sister. My own sister. The sister I'd taken in without question when she'd lost her job and had nowhere else to go. The sister whose car insurance bill I had paid just last month because she was a little short. The sister who ate my food, drank my wine, and wore my old sweaters, stretching them out because she never did her own laundry. My first impulse wasn't to scream. It wasn't to run in and start hitting them. It wasn't to throw the lamp on the dresser. It was a strange, terrifying calm. A sensation of floating outside my own body, like I was watching a movie. It was as if a switch had been flipped inside my brain, a circuit breaker, shutting down all emotion to prevent a catastrophic, system-wide overload. I noticed the way the afternoon sun slanted through the blinds, cutting the room in stripes of light and shadow. The dust motes were dancing in the air, illuminated. I saw the pile of Gary's work clothes slung over the armchair in the corner. I saw Janice's cheap, trendy jeans, the ones with the rips in the knees, pulled inside out on the floor. Right next to my side of the bed. On top of my slippers. Then Gary shifted. He must have sensed the change in the light, or felt a draft. He lifted his head. His eyes, hazy with pleasure, met mine over Janice's bare shoulder. The change was instantaneous. It was like watching a film jump cut. Panic, pure and undiluted, wiped the lazy satisfaction from his face. He froze. He looked like a startled animal. His mouth fell open, a silent O of disbelief. Janice, feeling him go rigid, turned her head. Her hair was a mess. She had a questioning, annoyed look on her face. "What, baby?" And then she saw me. Her expression morphed from sleepy contentment to wide-eyed, absolute horror in a split second. Carolyn, she breathed. Her voice was a guilty, strangled whisper. She scrambled to pull the sheet up, that sheet I had bought, up to her chin. I said nothing. I just stood there. I let the silence stretch and thicken, letting them choke on it. I wanted them to see my face. I wanted them to memorize the blank, dead-eyed stare of the woman whose life they had just detonated. I wanted this image burned into their brains for the rest of their lives. I held their gazes for 5, 10, 15 seconds. It felt like an eternity. I could hear the clock ticking on the nightstand. Tick. Tock. Tick. Tock. Then, with a deliberation that felt foreign to me, a coldness that came from somewhere deep I didn't know I had, I turned around. My hand released the doorknob. I walked away. I heard a frantic scramble behind me. A cacophony of rustling sheets, panicked whispers. Oh my God, get up, Carolyn, wait. Gary yelled my name. His voice cracked, high and thin with panic. Carolyn, wait. Wait. It's not what it looks like. The sheer, insulting stupidity of that cliché almost made me laugh. It almost made me hysterical. It's not what it looks like? What did he think it looked like? An emergency CPR demonstration? A sudden, urgent need to test the mattress springs? I didn't stop. I didn't run. My socks whispered back down the hall. My legs felt like they were moving through wet cement. I got to the front door. I picked up my small overnight bag. I sat on the little bench by the door, the one I'd bought at an antique store, and I put my sneakers back on. I slowly, carefully, double-knotted the laces, wincing as I bent over, the pain in my side a sharp, hot poker. I stood up. I opened the front door, and I stepped out into the hallway of the apartment building. I closed the door gently behind me. The soft click of the heavy latch sliding into place was the loudest sound in the world. It was the sound of my old life ending. It was the sound of a door closing on the woman I used to be. I somehow made it down to the lobby. I must have pressed the elevator button. I must have walked across the marble floor. I remember the doorman, Mike, a man I'd known for years, smiled and said, "Welcome home, Mrs. Hanson. Hope you're feeling better." I think I even nodded back. I must have. I felt like a ghost. I got in the elevator, my hands shaking so violently I could barely press the button for the garage. I got to my car, my little reliable Honda. I sat there for a full minute, just staring at the concrete wall, before I could even fit the key into the ignition. My hand kept missing. When the engine finally turned over, I just drove. I backed out of my spot, drove up the ramp, and out into the bright, indifferent afternoon sunlight. I had no destination. The city became a blur of traffic lights and storefronts, a smear of concrete and glass that I saw but didn't register. Horns honked. People crossed the street. My mind was a frantic, looping slideshow of memories. Each one now recontextualized, poisoned, made hideous by the scene I had just witnessed. The phone call from my mother 6 months ago played in my head on a torturous loop. I was at my desk, trying to close a huge project at my marketing firm. "Carolyn, honey, it's your mother." Her voice was dripping with that special brand of maternal guilt she had perfected over the years. That sigh she did. "Hi Mom, I'm a little busy, can I?" I was just on the phone with poor Janice. The poor thing. Poor Janice. It was always poor Janice. She lost her job. The marketing firm just let her go. And her roommate is moving out, she has nowhere else to go. She's just beside herself. I remember I sighed. I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Mom, I'm really swamped right now. And Gary and we're in a good rhythm. I'm not sure having a house guest is a good idea." "Oh, honey," she'd interrupted, her voice turning sharp. She's not a house guest, she's your sister. You have that big spare room and it's just sitting empty. It's no trouble. Family has to be there for each other. You know, you're the responsible one. You've always been so capable. Capable. That was the word. The word that meant I had to carry everyone else's weight. The word that meant I had to clean up the messes my creative and free-spirited sister kept making. And I, the ever-dutiful, responsible daughter, had caved. Okay, Mom. Just for a few weeks. Until she gets on her feet. Oh, thank you, honey. You're a lifesaver. You won't even know she's there. Won't even know she's there. I'd spent a whole weekend clearing out that spare room, which had been my office, my one quiet space in the whole apartment. I'd packed up my books, my desk, my files. I'd bought new sheets from Bed Bath & Beyond, new towels. Just for a few weeks, right? I'd asked Gary. Whatever makes you happy, honey, he'd said, not even looking up from his laptop. It'll be nice to have family around. A few weeks had turned into 6 months. 6 months of Janice sleeping until noon, working on her blog, and treating her home like a hotel. 6 months of her borrowing my clothes, finishing the good coffee, and leaving her dishes in the sink for me to clean up when I got home from a 10-hour day. Then there was the memory of a family dinner just a few weeks prior. It was at our parents' house. A Sunday dinner. I was practically vibrating with excitement. I'd been working on this for years. I have big news, I'd announced at the table, after my father finished his long-winded story about his golf game. Everyone looked at me. I just received a major promotion at work, I said, smiling. I'm a senior director now. This was a huge milestone. It came with a significant salary increase, enough to finally let us breathe, maybe pay off the last of our student loans, maybe even take that trip to Italy we'd talked about. But did we celebrate my success? No. My mother said, "Oh, that's nice, dear. More wine?" And then she immediately turned to my sister. "Janice, honey, how is the job hunt going? Any leads?" My parents, with Gary. Gary, my own husband, nodding along enthusiastically, spent the entire rest of the dinner gushing about how resilient Janice was. "She's just so brave, trying to find her passion," my mother had cooed. "She's using this time off to really find her creative side. She's thinking of starting a blog, you know. About wellness. She's got a real spark, that one," Gary had added. I remember it so clearly. He'd reached across the table and given Janice's arm a squeeze. A squeeze that lasted just a second too long. A second I had registered, and then dismissed. He's just being supportive. He's being nice. A real spark. I'd felt a prickle of irritation then. A familiar, hot feeling of being overlooked. Of being the sturdy, boring foundation upon which the more interesting members of my family could stand. I was the reliable one, the one who paid the bills and got the promotions. Janice was the spark. Now, that memory felt sinister. Their shared glances. Their inside jokes that I was never privy to. It had all been happening right in front of me. I had paid for the very food on the table, I'd brought the expensive wine and the dessert, where they had silently mocked me. My sacrifices paraded through my mind, each one a fresh sting of humiliation. I'd used the bulk of a small inheritance from my grandmother to make a larger payment on our mortgage. A very large payment. I remember the day, 3 years ago. I was at the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. My grandmother, my Nana, had pulled me aside a few weeks before she passed. "Carolyn," she'd whispered, her hand frail on mine, "I'm leaving you a little something extra. Don't tell the others. You're the one who's always held everything together. I want you to have this, for you. To give you a soft place to land." The lawyer confirmed it. A separate bequest. Just for me. And what did I do? I went home, and I sat down with Gary. Honey, I'd said, Nana left me some money. And I've been thinking, what if we just paid off a huge chunk of the mortgage? We could be free of it in a few years. He'd been so excited. Babe, that's amazing. What a great idea. We're such a good team. I'd worked late nights to cover our bills when Gary's freelance graphic design work was in a lull, which it seemed to be more and more often. It's just the market, honey, he'd say. It's all about connections. So I worked later. I took on the extra projects. I'd hosted every Thanksgiving and Christmas for the last 5 years. I'd spend days planning, shopping, and cooking until my feet ached and my back was stiff. Why? Because Janice was too stressed with the job hunt and Gary was just not a planner. You're just so good at it, Carolyn, my mother would say, as she sat on my couch, sipping my wine. I was the bedrock. The dependable, reliable, boring bedrock they had built their secret, sordid little world on top of. And they had just dynamited the foundations. The dull ache in my side from the surgery had escalated into a raging fire. But the emotional agony was a physical weight, a crushing pressure on my chest that made it impossible to breathe. I don't know how long I was driving. An hour. Maybe 2. The city suburbs had melted away. I swerved into the parking lot of a deserted strip mall. A defunct Kmart, a for lease sign in every window. The tires crunched on loose gravel. I slammed the car into park. I sat there in the silence. The engine ticked. And finally, the unnatural calm that had enveloped me, it shattered into a million pieces. A sob ripped through me. It wasn't a cry. It was a raw, animal sound of pure, unadulterated pain. It tore out of my throat, ugly and loud. I slumped over the steering wheel, my forehead pressing against the hard plastic, and I wept. I wept for the woman who was so desperate to be a good daughter, a good wife, a good sister, that she never stopped to ask if they were good to her. I wept for my own willful blindness. I wept for the crisp, clean sheets I had put on my own bed. I wept for my grandmother's inheritance. I wept for the promotion I'd been so proud of that they didn't even care about. I wept until my throat was raw. I wept until my eyes were swollen shut. I wept until my sore abdomen ached from the force of it. I wept until there were simply no tears left. When it was over, there was only a hollow, echoing emptiness. The rage was gone. The grief was gone. In their place was something new. Something hard and cold and terrifyingly clear. It was resolve. I pushed myself upright, my back cracking. I wiped my tear-streaked, snotty face with the back of my hand. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman staring back was a stranger. Her eyes were puffy and red, but they weren't weak. They weren't the eyes of the capable one anymore. They were flinty. They were hard. They were done. I took a deep, shuddering breath. It hitched in my chest. Then I picked up my phone. My hands were perfectly steady now. I had one call to make. I scrolled through my contacts, past Dad, past Gary husband, past Jana's sister, past Mom. I pressed Brenda friend. It rang once. Twice. Carolyn? Hey! How are you feeling? Did they spring you? I was going to visit tonight. Brenda. My best friend since we were college roommates. The maid of honor at my wedding. A shark of a divorce lawyer and the most fiercely loyal person I knew. Brenda, I said. My voice was raspy, broken. It's me. Something's happened. There was a brief pause on the other end. The bubbly, friendly tone was gone. Carolyn? You sound awful. Are you okay? Did something happen with the surgery? Where are you? Are you driving? I will be, I said, and the certainty in my own voice surprised me. I'm at a strip mall. I don't even know where. But I need a place to stay. And I need a lawyer. The line was silent for just one beat. And in that beat, I heard her shift from concerned friend to focused professional. Did he? She started, and I could hear the cold anger in her voice. She never liked Gary. She'd always said he was too smooth. Worse, I whispered. It was him. And Janice. In our bed. I heard her inhale sharply, followed by a very quiet, very precise curse word. Okay, she said. Her voice was suddenly clipped and all business. Listen to me, Carolyn. Right now. Find your location on your phone and text it to me. But first, tell me where you are. What's the last exit you remember? I looked up. I think I'm near the old Kmart off Route 9. I know where that is. That's 20 minutes from me. Okay. My door is always open. You know that. Get over here. Now. And listen to me. Do not go back to the apartment. Do not talk to them. Do not answer their calls, do not answer their texts. Do you understand me? Just come here. We'll figure this out. The right way. Okay, I whispered. Okay. I'm coming. Driving to Brenda's was different. I wasn't aimless anymore. I had a destination. I had a purpose. I drove through the city, but this time I saw the lights. I saw the other cars. I felt focused. Walking into Brenda's sleek, minimalist apartment on the other side of town felt like stepping through a portal into another reality. It smelled like lemons and coffee. It was clean, organized, and blessedly calm. Everything my life was not. She opened the door before I even knocked. She must have been watching from the window. She took one look at my ravaged face as I stood in her doorway, still clutching my little overnight bag. She didn't say, I told you so. She didn't say, I knew it. She just opened her arms, pulled me into a fierce, strong hug that said everything words couldn't, and just held me for a full minute while I stood there, stiff as a board, unable to even cry anymore. Then she steered me towards her plush sofa. Sit. She came back a minute later with a glass of water and 2 ibuprofen. Take these. Your incision. I took them numbly. First, you rest, she said, her voice soft but firm. You've had a major shock on top of major surgery. You are not to make any decisions tonight. You are not to answer any calls. Your phone. Give it to me. I handed it to her. She turned it on silent and plugged it in on her kitchen counter, face down. You can use the guest room. Fresh towels are in the bathroom. There's a new toothbrush under the sink. Tonight, you sleep. She pointed to the comfortable-looking guest room. Tomorrow, she said, her eyes hardening just a little, we go to war. I slept on her comfortable guest bed for 10 solid hours. A deep, dreamless sleep of pure physical and emotional exhaustion. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was streaming through the window. For a split second, I didn't know where I was. And then it all came crashing back. The bed. Their faces. The smell of the room. Janice's stupid, throaty laugh. But for the first time in as long as I could remember, I didn't feel the immediate, pressing weight of anyone else's needs or expectations. There was only one thing on my mind. Taking back control. Brenda was already at her kitchen island, dressed in a sharp blazer, her laptop open. 2 steaming mugs of strong black coffee were waiting. She looked at me, her expression a mixture of sympathy and steel. How'd you sleep? Like the dead, I said. Good. Ready? I nodded, taking a sip of the coffee. It was hot, black, and bitter. It felt like pouring fuel on the cold fire in my belly. Ready. Okay, she said, turning her laptop towards me. It was open to a spreadsheet. Here's the battle plan. We act fast, and we act decisively. Before Gary has a chance to spin his narrative, manipulate you, or, God forbid, move any assets. The first thing we do is build a financial fortress around you. This isn't about revenge, Carolyn. This is about strategy. This is about protecting what's yours. For the next hour, Brenda, my brilliant lawyer friend, walked me through it. She laid out a series of precise, legal steps designed to protect me and neutralize them. First, she said, your paycheck. She slid a piece of paper over to me with a new bank account number on it. I opened this for you this morning. A new personal checking account, in your name only, at a new bank. Your first call is to your company's HR department. I picked up my phone. My hand was surprisingly steady. I dialed. Hi, Sarah, it's Carolyn Hansen. Carolyn. We heard you were out for surgery. Are you okay? We weren't expecting to hear from you. I'm recovering well, thanks, Sarah. Listen, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I need to update my direct deposit information, effective immediately. Oh, okay, sure. Just changing banks? The nice woman in HR asked. Something like that, I said. Just a personal change. It's very important it gets updated before the next payroll run. No problem at all, I can do that right now. What's the new account and routing number? I read off the account number Brenda had given me. And the address on file, can we change that to a new one as well? I'll be staying at a friend's place for a while, to recover. I gave her Brenda's address. All set, Carolyn. You just focus on getting better. I hung up. Done. That was the first brick. My next salary payment, the first one with my big promotion, would not be landing in the joint account Gary had access to. Good, Brenda said, ticking an item off her list. Step 2, credit cards. She pushed the phone back to me. Call all the joint cards. Tell them your purse was stolen. Your wallet, all your cards. Tell them to freeze the accounts and issue new cards, in your name only, to this address. Do not let them talk you into just removing him. Freeze. Everything. I did it. One by one. American Express. Visa. MasterCard. Hi, I'm reporting my cards as lost or stolen, I said, the lie feeling like a small, sharp taste of justice. My purse was taken. Oh no, ma'am, we'll freeze that account right away. We'll cancel those cards. Now, we can send new cards for you and Mr. Hansen. No, I said firmly. Please issue a new card only to me, Carolyn Hansen. Send it to a new address. My husband and I will be separating. He can apply for his own card. There was a pause, but they did it. One by one. Next, Brenda said, the joint savings. The big one. My stomach clenched. This was the account where our house money, my inheritance money, was sitting. I called the bank. Hello, I said to the customer service manager. My name is Carolyn Hansen. I would like to place an immediate withdrawal limit of $1 on our joint savings account, number 45B, pending a legal separation agreement. Yes, ma'am. I can put a legal hold on that right now. It will require both signatures for any transaction over $1 going forward. Can I ask the reason? Impending divorce, I said. The word felt strange and metallic in my mouth. Understood, ma'am. The hold is in place. I hung up. I looked at Brenda. Within 20 minutes, Gary's financial access to me was severed. He was on his own. He wanted to be a struggling artist? Fine. Let him struggle. Okay, Brenda said, a small, grim smile on her face. Step 3. This one's the most important. The apartment. What about it? I asked. You changed the locks. Today. Now. I can't go back there, Brenda. You don't have to go in. But you have to meet the locksmith. You're the primary name on the lease, you paid the down payment, and you've paid the majority of the mortgage. It's your apartment. We need to secure it. My stomach turned. Go back? I found a 24-hour locksmith online, Brenda said, already dialing. Here. She handed me the phone. I took a deep breath. Hi, I need an emergency lock change at my apartment, I told the man on the phone. My keys were stolen. Stolen purse? He asked, his voice gruff. Exactly, I said. We arranged to meet at noon. I knew Gary's schedule. I'd lived with him for 10 years. He had a lunch meeting with a potential new client he was trying to impress. He'd been talking about it for a week. And Janice, in her infinite laziness, usually went to a 12:30 spin class, a membership, I remembered with a fresh wave of nausea, that I was paying for. The timing was perfect. I drove to the apartment. This was the third time I'd made this drive in 24 hours. The first time, I was a hopeful patient. The second, a panicked victim. This time? I felt like a soldier. This wasn't my home anymore. It was a contaminated space. A crime scene. When I arrived, the locksmith, a burly man with kind eyes, was already waiting. Mrs. Hanson? Let's get this done for you. Thank you, I said. High security. The best you have. You got it. As he worked, drilling out the old locks with a loud, whining, high-pitched noise that sounded like liberation, I went inside. For the last time. I had to. Brenda said I needed to get my essentials. My laptop, my work files, my good jewelry, my grandmother's things. I walked through the silent rooms, a ghost in my own life. I went straight to the master bedroom. The bed was hastily made. A pathetic attempt to erase their sin. But I could still smell it. The cloying, sweet, cheap vanilla scent of Janice's perfume mixed with them. It was on the pillows. A wave of nausea hit me, but I swallowed it down. Hard. There was work to do. I went to my closet. I grabbed my work laptop. I pulled 2 large suitcases from the top shelf, wincing as the strain pulled at my stitches. I didn't pack my clothes. I went to his closet. Methodically. Clinically. I began to pack their things. I started with Gary's side. I packed his expensive shirts, the ones he needed for client meetings. His collection of graphic novels. His other laptop, his personal one, and all its cables. His stupid, expensive sneakers that he collected. As I packed his things, I found a framed photo on his nightstand. It was a picture of us on our wedding day, 5 years ago. I was so happy. So hopeful. I looked at the smiling, naive woman in the photo, and I felt a pang of pity for her. She had no idea. I took the photo out of the frame. I looked at his smiling face. And I tore it. I tore it neatly, directly in half, and I dropped the 2 pieces into the trash can. Then I moved on to Janice's belongings in the guest room, my old office. Her cheap, trendy outfits were everywhere, spilling out of the closet I had cleared for her. Many of which she had borrowed from my closet and never returned. Her extensive collection of makeup, spilling over the dresser. The pile of vapid self-help books she'd bought with my money. The Secret to Abundance. Manifesting Your Best Life. I didn't throw things. I didn't rip anything. I folded each item. Her ugly sweaters. Her stupid wellness yoga pants. It was a detached, surgical process. With each folded shirt, I was folding away a piece of my past, putting it away for good. As I was finishing up in the master bedroom, zipping his bag shut, I found the tablet Gary used for his design work sitting on his nightstand, charging. He must have forgotten it in his haste to chase after me, or, more likely, in his panic to get Janice out of there before I came back. On a whim, I unplugged it. I looked at it. His whole freelance business was on that tablet. All his client files. I unplugged it and packed it deep into his bag, under his socks and underwear. It was petty. It was small. But I didn't care. When I was done, I zipped up the 2 heavy suitcases. I dragged them, one by one, to the front door. My stitches were screaming. The locksmith had just finished installing the new, high-security deadbolt. It was big and brassy. "All set, ma'am," he said, handing me a set of 3 shiny new keys. They felt heavy and powerful in my palm. "No one's getting through that without one of these." "Thank you," I said. I paid him, adding a large tip. "Thank you for your quick work." After he left, I stood in the empty hallway for a moment. I grabbed my own overnight bag and the small box of my jewelry. I opened the door one last time. I pushed their 2 suitcases out onto the welcome mat. I looked at them. Gary's expensive leather bag, Janice's cheap pink roller bag. Then I closed the door. I closed it, and from the inside, I turned the new deadbolt. The solid, satisfying thunk of the heavy bolt sliding into place was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. I didn't go back to Brenda's right away. I checked into a small, anonymous hotel near her place. I needed a night to just be. To not be a guest. To just exist. I sat on the hotel bed, and I finally turned my phone off silent. It exploded. It was like a dam breaking. Dozens of notifications. First, a string of increasingly frantic texts from Gary. It was a timeline of his afternoon. 2 p.m., Carolyn, where are you? We need to talk about this. 2:30 p.m., seriously, answer your phone. 3:15 p.m., my key isn't working. 3:16 p.m., what the hell is going on? Did you change the locks? 3:17 p.m., Carolyn, this isn't funny. 3:20 p.m., are you insane? My laptop is in there. My work. All my files. 3:25 p.m., and all my clothes? And Janice's? What are we supposed to do? 3:30 p.m., you can't just throw us out. We have rights. I have rights. Rights. The nerve of him. Then came the calls. One after another. Missed call, Gary. Missed call, Gary. Missed call, Gary. I watched it buzz in my hand. Gary flashing on the screen. A small, vicious thrill ran through me. I let it go to voicemail every time. Around 5 p.m., a new number called. MOM. I knew I had to take this one. I braced myself. I took a deep breath, and I hit accept. Carolyn. What is the meaning of this? She shrieked. Her voice was a high-pitched nail on a chalkboard. It was so loud, I had to pull the phone away from my ear. There was no hello. No, I heard what happened. No, how are you feeling after your surgery? Just pure, undiluted accusation. Janice just called me. She's in tears. She's hysterical. You threw her out on the street. Her and Gary. Their suitcases are in the hallway. The doorman had to put them in storage. How could you be so heartless? How could you be so cruel? I listened to her tirade. I just listened. My heart felt like a cold, hard stone in my chest. Every ounce of her concern was for Janice. The golden child. The perpetual victim. Not a single question about whether I was okay. Not a single flicker of curiosity about what might have prompted such a drastic action from her ever-reliable, ever-placid older daughter. "Are you done?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Done? Done? What is wrong with you? Your sister has nowhere to go. She's standing on the sidewalk with her suitcases. After everything we've taught you about the importance of family. What have you taught me about family, Mom?" I interrupted. The ice in my voice cracked with a sudden, sharp anger. "What, exactly, have you taught me? That it's my job to clean up everyone else's messes? That I'm supposed to set myself on fire to keep everyone else warm? That my home is a free hotel and my bank account is a public fund? You're being selfish, Carolyn," she shrieked. "And vindictive. This isn't like you. Gary made a mistake. People make mistakes." "A mistake?" I said. "He was in my bed, Mom. With your other daughter. The one you sent to my house. Was that a mistake? Or was it just? Poor Janice? You're being selfish and vindictive," she repeated, her voice sputtering. "This isn't like you." "You're right," I said. And a profound sense of clarity washed over me, silencing the last, tiny, flickering vestiges of guilt. It isn't. The old Carolyn is gone. The one who took care of everyone. The one who paid for everything. She's gone. For the first time in my life, Mom, I'm putting myself first. This conversation is over. I hung up. I hung up on my mother. For the first time in my life. My phone immediately started ringing again. MOM. I pressed ignore. It rang again. Dad. I pressed ignore. It rang again. Janice's sister. I just stared at her name. Then, systematically, I opened my contacts. I blocked her number. I blocked Gary's number. I blocked my mother's number. I blocked my father's number. The silence that followed was blissful. It was the silence of freedom. But as I sat there, in that quiet, beige hotel room, staring at my dark phone screen, a nagging feeling returned. This was too easy. Their brazenness. Their comfort in my home. Gary's text message, "My laptop is in there." My work. It felt like more than just a passionate, stupid fling. It felt like they believed they had a right to be there. A right to my life. I just didn't have the proof. Yet. I moved into Brenda's guest room the next day. It became my command center. The next few days were a blur of legal paperwork. Brenda was my anchor. She was ruthless. She filed for divorce immediately, citing adultery. "We need to document everything, Carolyn," she insisted one evening. We were on her living room floor, surrounded by piles of bank statements. Every asset, every debt. We need a full, undeniable financial picture before he has a chance to hide anything. It was exhausting. I was still recovering from surgery. I was tired, and I was heartsick. That's what led me back to the tablet. A few nights later, Brenda was out for a late run. I was alone in the apartment. I pulled Gary's tablet from the bag of his things I'd stored in the corner of the guest room. I told myself I was just being thorough. I was looking for financial documents I might have missed. Bank accounts. Client lists. anything that might be relevant to the divorce proceedings. But that was a lie. A deeper, darker curiosity was gnawing at me. I needed to know. I needed to understand the scope of their deception. I needed to know how long. I powered it on. The password screen glowed in the dim light. My heart sank. It could be anything. I tried his birthday. Password incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Password incorrect. I tried the name of our cat, Barnaby. Password incorrect. I tried his mother's maiden name. Password incorrect. I tried password. I tried 1 2 3 4 5 6. Nothing. I sat there, frustrated. What else would he use? His favorite band? His mother's maiden name? Then a bitter, cynical thought wormed its way into my mind. A cold, sick feeling. No. He wouldn't. He couldn't be that stupid. That cruel. That blatant. With trembling fingers, I typed in Janice's birthday. 0-8-1-9. It unlocked. A wave of hot, acidic sickness washed over me. I had to put the tablet down on the bedspread. I literally gagged. Of course. Of course. His password. His private, personal password was a tribute to her. The sheer, blatant disrespect of it stole my breath. I felt like a fool, a naive, trusting fool all over again. Swallowing my disgust, I started searching. I opened his files. It was mostly work stuff, just as I'd seen before, design mock-ups, client emails. I checked his photo gallery. It was squeaky clean. Just pictures of landscapes and our cat. They were smart. They hadn't left an obvious, messy trail. I was about to give up, feeling defeated, when Brenda's voice echoed in my head. We'd had this conversation over wine 2 nights before. People are lazy, Carolyn. They think they're clever, but they always leave a trace. They delete the emails, but they forget the cloud. They clear the cache, but they forget the drafts. Check the places they forget about. I opened his cloud storage drive, which was still synced to the device. I meticulously checked the trash folder. Nothing. I checked the archives. Empty. My heart began to sink. Maybe it really was just an affair. Then I saw a folder labeled simply, Drafts. It was mostly half-finished, unsent emails to clients. Hi, just following up on the logo. Here's the revised mock-up. I scrolled. And scrolled. And as I scrolled to the bottom, one file created several months ago, right around the time Janice lost her job, caught my eye. It had a strange, innocuous name, The Plan. My fingers trembled as I tapped on it. It wasn't an email. It was a note. A long, detailed, horrifying note. It was a timeline. And as I read it, the floor didn't just drop out from under me. The entire building collapsed. It was all there. In cold, hard, black and white. A meticulously crafted plan, written by Gary, clearly for Janice. It started with her losing her job. He'd written, just tell them you're being downsized. Make it sound convincing. Cry a little. Carolyn will call her mom, and her mom will do the rest. We'll have you in the guest room by the end of the month. It went on. It talked about how he would encourage me to use the windfall from my grandmother's inheritance to pay off the remaining mortgage on the apartment. The note was chillingly specific. A roadmap to my financial ruin. Just have to be patient for another 6 months, babe, one line read. Once she pays off the house with the inheritance money, it's fully a marital asset, free and clear. I've already talked to a lawyer friend. Because she commingled that gift with our marital property, it's ours. We wait for her big promotion to kick in, then we file for divorce. My blood ran colder. It went on. Then, with her big new promotion and salary and my struggling artist act, the judge will have no choice but to award me half the value of the home. We'll force a sale, split the money, and we can finally get that little place by the coast. The one we saw in Big Sur. Another section detailed how Janice should play the part. Just keep telling her how grateful you are, how you don't know what you'd do without her. She eats that stuff up. She's so focused on being the responsible one, she'll never see it coming. Just play the victim. You're great at it. I had to read it 3 times. My eyes scanned the words over and over before my brain could fully process the sheer, calculated evil of it. This wasn't just a betrayal. This wasn't just an affair. This was a long con. This was conspiracy to commit fraud. They hadn't just cheated on me. They had been actively, methodically plotting to strip me of my home, my savings, and my grandmother's inheritance. My kindness, my sense of family duty, my generosity, they had seen it all as a fundamental character flaw. A weakness to be systematically exploited for their own gain. The feeling in my gut wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was a cold, pure, diamond-hard fury unlike anything I had ever known. This document. This was everything. This was the truth. This was my weapon. With a hand that was now perfectly steady, I connected the tablet to Brenda's wireless printer. I printed 2 copies of the entire multi-page note. Then, for good measure, I took clear, high-resolution pictures of every part of the screen with my phone. I emailed them to Brenda. I emailed them to myself. I saved them to a new cloud drive. I held the printed pages in my hand. The paper was still warm from the printer. This was my proof. This was my power. And I knew exactly when, and where, I was going to detonate it. A week later, the call I had been waiting for came. Brenda and I were eating pizza on her living room floor, going over more divorce papers, when my phone buzzed. I had unblocked my father's number, anticipating this exact move. "Hi, Dad." "Carolyn." His voice was different this time. Not shrieking with anger like my mother, but heavy with a paternal, condescending disappointment that was somehow even more infuriating. "Your mother and we've been talking. We're very worried about you." "Worried about me," I repeated, my voice flat. This isn't you. This silence, this fighting, it's tearing the family apart. Your mother is a wreck. My mother is a wreck. Of course. We need to sit down, he continued, his voice taking on that head of the family tone. As a family. And talk this through. All of us. This Sunday. At our house. For dinner. 6 o'clock. Janice and Gary will be here. We need to clear the air. I could hear the unspoken words hanging in the air like a thick fog. This is your chance to apologize. This is your chance to be the bigger person and fix the mess you made. They were summoning me to a tribunal. A kangaroo court, where I would be the one on trial. They wanted to use the immense, suffocating weight of family to crush me into submission. To make me forgive and forget so they could all go back to their comfortable, dysfunctional normal. "Okay, Dad," I said, my voice perfectly even, betraying none of the triumphant rage singing in my veins. "I'll be there." He sounded audibly relieved. Good. That's my girl. That's the Carolyn we know. We'll see you at 6. He had no idea what was coming. They thought they were setting a trap for me. In reality, they were building my stage. I hung up and looked at Brenda. "It's on," I said. "Sunday. 6 o'clock. At my parents'." Brenda's eyes lit up. "Oh, this is it. This is perfect." I spent the rest of the week preparing for my performance. Brenda and I went over every detail, every possible contingency. She role-played as my mother, as Gary, as my father, throwing every possible accusation at me. "How could you be so heartless?" she'd shriek, mimicking my mother perfectly. "That's an interesting perspective, Mom. But let's talk about the facts," I'd practice saying, my voice flat. "No, colder." Brenda would coach me. "They will try to provoke you, Carolyn. They want you to scream. They want you to cry. They want you to get emotional. That's how they'll dismiss you as hysterical and irrational. You cannot give them that satisfaction. You are not a victim pleading her case. You are a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. Be a surgeon. Cold, precise, and lethal." On Sunday, I chose my armor carefully. I went out and bought a new dress. Not a power suit. Too aggressive. Not a sweater. Too soft. I chose a simple, impeccably tailored navy blue sheath dress. Professional. Unimpeachable. I pulled my hair back into a sleek, severe bun at the nape of my neck. I did my makeup with a steady hand, a touch of dark eyeliner to make my eyes look sharp, a neutral lipstick that meant business. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the capable Carolyn. I didn't see the nice one. I saw a woman who was in complete and utter control. In my leather portfolio, I had 2 sets of documents, each in its own clear plastic sleeve. The first was the small collection of tasteful but undeniable photos of Gary and Janice together, kissing at a restaurant, holding hands in a park, all dated months before she had supposedly lost her job. All sent to me by a mutual friend who, after hearing I'd filed for divorce, could no longer stomach their public displays of disrespect. The second document, in its own separate sleeve, was the multi-page, printed-out copy of the plan. I walked up to my parents' manicured front lawn, up the familiar brick walkway, and rang the bell. My heart was pounding, a frantic drum against my ribs, but my face was a mask of serene calm. My dad opened the door, a pained, practiced smile on his face. "Carolyn. Glad you could make it. Come in." I stepped into the lion's den. The scene was exactly as I'd pictured it. My mother, Gary, and Janice were all arranged in the formal living room, a space reserved for important occasions and scoldings. They were seated on the plush sofas like a panel of judges, their faces arranged in somber, serious expressions. It was so transparently staged, it was almost comical. Janice even had a tissue in her hand. I didn't join them on the sofas. I remained standing by the fireplace, my portfolio held loosely at my side. My father cleared his throat, taking his seat in his favorite armchair, the head of the family throne. "All right," he began, steepling his fingers. "We're all here because this situation has gotten out of hand. We need to resolve this, Carolyn. We know you're hurt. We understand that. But the way you acted, throwing your sister out on the street, freezing Gary out of his own home and bank account, it was an extreme reaction. It was cruel." On cue, Janice began to sniffle, dabbing at her perfectly dry eyes with that crumpled tissue. "I never, ever meant to hurt you, Carolyn," she whispered, her voice thick with fake emotion. "I know the timing was terrible, but Gary and we couldn't help it. We just fell in love. Our feelings are real." Gary nodded gravely, his face a mask of pained sincerity. "I take full responsibility, Carolyn. I was a coward. I should have told you sooner. But I love your sister. And I want to make this divorce as amicable as possible, for everyone's sake." I let them finish their pathetic, pre-rehearsed performance. I let the silence hang in the air. They all looked at me, their expressions a mixture of pity and expectation. Waiting. Waiting for my tears, my anger, my inevitable apology. Waiting for me to be the bigger person and fix it. I gave them none of it. Slowly, deliberately, I walked over to the large oak coffee table in the center of the room. I placed my leather portfolio down on the polished wood. The soft sound seemed to echo in the tense silence. "Love," I said. My voice was low and clear. It cut through the thick, self-righteous atmosphere like a shard of ice. "Is that what you're calling it?" I opened the portfolio. I slid the first plastic sleeve, the one with the photographs, across the table towards my parents. "This love of yours seems to have started long before you were living in my house, Janice," I said, my eyes locked on her. "This one is from, let's see, 8 months ago. Outside that little Italian place you said you discovered. Looks like Gary discovered it with you." I watched as her face crumpled. The fake tears turned into real ones of panic. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "What is this?" My father's face went pale, his paternal confidence beginning to crumble. Gary started to bluster, his voice rising. "Now, Carolyn, those photos can be taken out of context. We were just friends then. It was complicated." "Oh, I don't think so," I said, cutting him off with a sharp, dismissive wave of my hand. "But you're right. Let's talk about context. Let's talk about something much more important than a cheap, sordid affair." I reached into the portfolio again. This time, I pulled out the second document. The pages of the plan. "Let's talk about this," I said. I fanned the pages out on the table like a winning poker hand. "I believe you called it the plan, Gary." I watched their faces as the title registered. It was a beautiful, terrible sight. The blood drained from Gary's face. He turned a pasty, sickly gray. Janice looked like she was going to be physically ill, her hand clamped over her mouth, her eyes wide with pure, animal terror. I picked up the first page, my movements calm and measured. "I'm sure my parents would be very interested to hear about your detailed financial plan," I said, my voice ringing with a cold, hard clarity that I didn't know I possessed. "The one where you decided to wait for me to pay off the mortgage on my apartment. The apartment I paid for with my salary, my promotion, and my grandmother's inheritance." I looked directly at my parents, who were staring at the documents, horrified and confused. "And then," I continued, "once the asset was clear of all debt, you planned to file for divorce. You planned to take me to court, claiming you were a struggling artist, and use community property laws to demand half of everything I had worked my entire adult life for." I leaned in, my voice dropping to a near whisper, and I read a line directly from Gary's own treacherous, typed-out words. "She's so focused on being the responsible one, she'll never see it coming." The silence in the room was absolute. It was the silence of utter, catastrophic devastation. My parents stared, horrified, not at me, but at the two people they had so staunchly and blindly defended. The masks had been ripped away, and the ugly, greedy, monstrous truth was laid bare for all of them to see. Gary, in a last, desperate, idiotic act of pure panic, lunged. He lunged across the coffee table, trying to snatch the papers from my hand. "Give me that," he snarled, his face contorted in a mask of rage and fear. It was a clumsy, violent movement. He knocked over my mother's crystal glass of water. It crashed to the hardwood floor and shattered. My father, jolted from his stupor, shot up from his seat. "Gary, stop it! Get a hold of yourself. What is this?" I didn't even flinch. I simply took a half step back, holding the papers easily out of his reach, letting his aggression and desperation condemn him completely. I looked at my stunned, speechless parents. "This," I said, my voice calm as I gestured to the pathetic, scrambling, snarling man on the floor, who was now kneeling in a puddle of water and broken glass. "This is the man you wanted me to reconcile with. This is the family you were so desperate to preserve." I turned, leaving the damning evidence spread out on the table for them to read. Without another word, I walked towards the front door. No one tried to stop me this time. As my hand closed on the doorknob, I heard my mother's voice. It was no longer shrieking. It was a broken, horrified whisper. Janice, how could you? It was no longer a question of my cruelty. It was a question of theirs. I had not just won an argument. I had shattered their entire false reality. I closed the door behind me and walked out into the cool evening air. I took a deep breath. And I breathed freely for the first time in years. If you are still listening to this, please help me out and like this video and comment with the number 1 down below. It would let me know that you are amazing and that you're here with me on this journey. Your support is a huge encouragement for me. Please, comment with the number 1 so I can see you, and now, I'll tell you the rest of the story. The drive back to Brenda's was quiet. There was no triumphant fist pumping. There was no rage, no tears. Just a profound, bone-deep sense of release. The immense weight I had carried on my shoulders for my entire life, the weight of being the responsible one, was finally, blessedly, gone. The divorce was swift. With Brenda's ruthless expertise and the undeniable, documented proof of conspiracy to commit fraud, Gary had no leg to stand on. We had one meeting at Brenda's office. Gary and his new, cheap-looking lawyer. His lawyer tried to argue for spousal support and half the assets. He started going on about Gary's contribution to the marriage as a freelance artist. Brenda just let him talk. Then she slid the copies of the plan across the table. The lawyer read the first page. His face went blank. He read the second page. He looked at Gary. He looked back at the papers. He quietly slid them back across the table. My client will agree to the terms, he said. Gary didn't get half the apartment. He didn't get a penny of my inheritance or my savings. He walked away with his suitcases of clothes, which were still in my parents' basement, and a mountain of legal debt from his own failed lawyer. The apartment, my apartment, remained mine, free and clear. My relationship with my family was fractured. Perhaps permanently. My mother tried to call a few times, from a friend's phone. Carolyn, honey, we need to talk. I hung up. My final communication with them wasn't a tearful confrontation, but a short, clear email I sent to my parents a week after that disastrous dinner. I need space and time to heal from the profound damage that has been done, I wrote. The trust one once had, in all of you, has been completely destroyed. I will reach out when, and if, I am ready. Please respect my boundary. Do not contact me. For the first time, I had set a boundary they could not cross, because I was the one holding all the power. I decided to sell the apartment. I couldn't stay there. I hired a realtor, and I had them stage it. I never stepped foot inside it again. There were too many ghosts, too many painful memories etched into the very walls. I couldn't sleep in that bed. I couldn't walk down that hallway. I sold it, and because the market was good, I made a tidy profit. I took that money, and I bought a smaller, brighter condo in a completely different part of the city. A new neighborhood. It has a balcony that overlooks a park, and it's a place that is entirely, unequivocally mine. Filled with my things, my peace, my future. Healing wasn't a straight line. It's not like the movies. There were days of simmering anger. Days of deep, aching sadness for the family I thought I had, the marriage I thought I had. There were nights I woke up, thinking I heard Janice's laugh. On Brenda's advice, I started going to a support group. For people navigating difficult, high-conflict divorces. It was strange at first. Sitting in a circle of mismatched folding chairs in a community center basement, over cups of stale coffee. Listening to other people's stories. Stories of betrayal, of lies, of financial ruin. But it was there that I learned I wasn't alone. It was there I learned that my story, while uniquely painful, was a story of strength. And it was there, a few months later, that I met Russell. He wasn't a knight in shining armor who rode in to save me. He was just a man. A quiet, kind architect with a gentle smile and sad eyes that held his own story of betrayal. His wife had run off with his business partner, draining their college fund for their kids. We started talking after a meeting one night, bonding over the shared, absurd details of our legal battles. He listened to my story, not with pity, but with a deep, validating empathy. And for the first time, I felt safe enough to listen to his. Our first date was just coffee on a Saturday morning. In a little shop near my new condo. We talked for 3 hours. It was easy. Natural. He didn't try to fix me or save me. He just saw me. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt seen for who I was, not for what I could provide for someone else. It's been a year now since that awful day. My life is quiet, and it is beautiful. My work is thriving, without the constant drain of my family's drama. I have more energy and creativity than ever before. My small balcony is now a lush garden of herbs. The smell of fresh basil and rosemary fills my kitchen when I cook for myself, or sometimes, for Russell. We are taking things slow. Building something real. Something based on mutual respect, honesty, and a shared understanding of how precious a peaceful life can be. Last week, we were helping out at a community garden near my condo, planting new spring bulbs. As my hands dug into the cool, dark, rich earth, I thought about the journey. The woman who stood in that doorway, shattered and silent, felt like a person from another lifetime. That silence, I realized now, wasn't weakness. It was the moment I stopped listening to the deafening noise of everyone else's demands, and finally started listening to the quiet, persistent whisper of my own